He is not limited by your activity. The God who created the heavens and the earth does not become tired, and he does not need a break. While you rest, he remains fully active, fully aware, and fully capable of accomplishing what concerns you. Think about how often worry tries to steal your peace at night. You may lie awake thinking about your health, your family, your future, or situations that seem beyond your control. The mind starts racing with questions and concerns. But worrying has never solved a problem. Anxiety has never created a miracle. Fear has never produced healing. Yet faith opens the door for peace, and peace allows you to rest in the confidence that God is still working on your behalf. When you close your eyes tonight, remember that God sees what you cannot see. He understands every detail of your situation. He knows every challenge you are facing and every answer you need. Nothing catches him by surprise. Before you ever prayed about your problem, he already knew about it. Before you ever felt weakness in your body, he understood exactly what was happening. Before you ever shed a tear, he was aware of your struggle. That means you can rest. Not because the situation is easy, but because God is greater than the situation. There is something powerful, wonderful about surrendering your burdens to the Lord. Many people carry weights they were never meant to carry. They try to figure everything out on their own. They feel responsible for solving every problem and fixing every circumstance. But there comes a moment when wisdom says, I have done all I can do. Now I trust God to do what only he can do. That kind of trust brings freedom. It removes the pressure from your shoulders and places it into the hands of the one who never fails. Even nature reminds us of this principle. While you sleep, your body continues to work. Your heart keeps beating. Your lungs continue breathing. Cells repair themselves. Strength is renewed. Growth takes place without your conscious effort. In a similar way, God often works behind the scenes in ways you cannot immediately recognize. Just because you cannot see his hand moving does not mean he is not at work. Some of his greatest works happen quietly, steadily, and faithfully while you simply trust him. Faith means believing that God's power is active, even when there is no visible evidence. It means trusting that he is arranging circumstances, opening doors, providing solutions, and bringing restoration according to his perfect wisdom. You do not have to stay awake all night trying to control tomorrow. Tomorrow belongs to God. Your responsibility is to trust him, and his responsibility is to remain faithful to his promises. So tonight, let your heart become calm. Release every fear, every unanswered question, and every burden into God's hands. Allow his peace to fill your mind. Rest knowing that heaven is not asleep. The God who loves you is still watching over you. His power is still working. His promises are still true. And even while you rest, he is accomplishing things that only he can accomplish. Trust him completely and let your soul find peace in the assurance that God is working even when you are resting. Healing begins when faith replaces fear. This truth has the power to transform not only the condition of your body, but also the condition of your mind and spirit. Fear and faith cannot dominate the heart at the same time. One will always influence your thoughts more than the other. Fear focuses on the problem, while faith focuses on God's ability. Fear magnifies the obstacle, while faith magnifies the promise. Fear expects defeat, but faith expects victory. Many people spend most of their time listening to fear. Fear whispers that nothing will ever change. It says the situation is too difficult, the pain is too great, or the condition has lasted too long. Fear tries to convince you that your future will look exactly like your present, It paints a picture of hopelessness and encourages you to accept defeat before the battle is over. If fear is allowed to remain unchecked, it can rob a person of peace, confidence, and expectation. Faith, however, speaks a different language. Faith says that God is greater than any sickness, greater than any challenge, and greater than any report that may come your way. Faith does not deny that problems exist, but it refuses to believe that the problem has the final word. Faith looks beyond present circumstances and places complete confidence in God's power and faithfulness. It chooses to believe that what God has promised is more reliable than what fear is suggesting. Consider how fear affects the human mind and body. When a person is overwhelmed by fear, sleep becomes difficult. Peace disappears, stress increases. Every symptom seems larger than it really is. Every challenge feels impossible to overcome. Fear drains strength and weakens hope. It causes people to focus constantly on what is wrong instead of believing for what can be made right. This is why replacing fear with faith is so important. Healing often begins with a change in what you are believing and expecting. Stop fighting battles in their own strength and start trusting in God's strength instead of asking, what if things get worse? Faith asks, what if God is already working on my behalf? Instead of expecting failure, faith expects God's goodness. Instead of focusing on limitations, faith focuses on possibilities. This shift in perspective changes the atmosphere of the heart and opens the door to peace. The journey toward healing is not about pretending that simply remember that God's promises remain active throughout the night. His faithfulness continues while you sleep. His power remains at work. His love surrounds you. And when morning comes, you can rise with confidence, knowing that the God who watched over you every promise he has made. Your body responds to the power of God's word. This truth is more than a comforting thought. It is a foundation for faith and hope. The human body is wonderfully created, and God, as the creator, and fearful predictions. While it is important to understand facts and seek wisdom, it is equally important to remember that God's word speaks a higher truth. His word reminds us that he is loving, faithful, powerful, and concerned about every detail of our lives. When you continually fill your heart and mind with his promises, something begins to change on the inside. Fear starts losing its grip, hope begins to rise, and peace takes the place of anxiety. The words we hear and believe influence us more than we often realize. Negative words can create discouragement and weaken confidence. Positive words can inspire courage and determination. God's word goes even further because it carries spiritual power. It is not merely information. It is truth that has the ability to often follow them into the night. Even when their bodies are tired, peace. They place their concerns into God's hands. They stop carrying the are part of life. There will be moments when thoughts refuse to let fear define your future. Trust God's love. Rely on his thinking about problems they cannot find you that God trust says God is still. The important thing is to approach each day believing that he is faithful to help you. Being refreshed involves more than physical rest. A person can sleep from your mind with thoughts of God's faithfulness. Thank him for his goodness. Thank him for his goodness. Reflect on the ways he has helped you in the past. Remind yourself that he has never abandoned you and never will. Then rest with expectation. Believe that when morning comes, you will rise with renewed strength, greater peace, and fresh hope. Expect God to meet you, become tired. And US of this principle, While you sleep, your body controls tomorrow. Even when expecting planted stands every detail, every need. Think surrender is weakness, but in reality, surrender is strength. It takes courage to place your burdens into God's hands and leave them there. It takes faith to stop trying to manage everything yourself. Yet, when you surrender, you discover a peace that cannot be produced by trust. However, focus on God's ability. It is a night for faith. Lay every concern at His feet. Quiet your heart. Door everything out on their own. They feel responsible for solving every problem and fixing every circumstance. Transform not only the condition of your body, but also the condition of your mind and spirit. Fear and faith cannot dominate the heart at the same time. One will always influence your thoughts more than the other. Fear focuses on the problem, while faith focuses on God's ability. Fear magnifies the obstacles and circumstances and places. Every challenge feels impossible to overcome. Instead of focusing on limitations, faith focuses on possibilities. This shift in perspective changes the atmosphere of the heart and opens the door to peace. The journey toward healing is not about pretending that symptoms do not exist. It is about refusing to let symptoms determine your confidence. In God, faith acknowledges reality, but it also recognizes a greater reality. God's power is able to accomplish what seems impossible. Throughout life, people face situations that appear beyond human solutions. Yet again and again, fear may knock on the door of your mind, but you do not have to invite it in. Instead, answer fear with faith. Remind our some promises. Let them become hope. The human body and hope. The human body is wonderfully created, and God, as the Creator, understands every part of it better than anyone else. He knows every organ, every nerve, every cell, and every function. Nothing about your physical condition is hidden from Him. Because He is the author of life, His word carries the power to bring encouragement, strength, restoration, and renewal to every area of your being. Many people spend countless hours listening to negative reports, discouraging opinions, and fearful predictions. While it is important to understand facts and seek wisdom, it is equally important to remember that God's Word speaks a higher truth. His Word reminds us that He is loving, faithful, powerful, and concerned about every detail of our lives. When you continually fill your heart and mind with His promises, something begins to change on the inside. Fear starts losing its grip, hope begins to rise, and peace takes the place of anxiety. The words we hear and believe influence us more than we often realize. Negative words can create discouragement and weaken confidence. Positive words can inspire courage and determination. God's Word goes even further because it carries spiritual power. It is not merely information. It is truth that has the ability to transform the heart and renew the mind. As your mind becomes renewed by God's promises, your outlook changes. You begin to expect good things instead of constantly expecting the worst. When people face physical doomed with symptoms and limitations, every day becomes focused on what is wrong. Every conversation revolves around the problem. While it is natural to acknowledge difficulties, it is dangerous to allow those difficulties to become the center of your attention. God's Word invites you to lift your eyes higher. It encourages you to focus on God's ability rather than your inability. It directs your attention toward hope rather than despair. Faith grows when God's Word is consistently planted in the heart. Just as a seed must be planted before it can produce a harvest, God's promises must be planted in your thoughts and beliefs before they can influence your life. The more time you spend reflecting on His truth, the deeper those truths take root. Over time, they begin shaping your expectations, strengthening your confidence, and filling you with peace. This inner transformation often becomes the starting point for outward change. Consider how your body reacts when fear enters your mind. Fear can create tension, sleeplessness, stress, and emotional exhaustion. The body often reflects what is happening internally. In the same way, when peace fills, calmness replaces tension. Hope replaces despair. Confidence replaces worry. God's Word helps create this atmosphere of peace because